You may be wondering, how exactly did we get here? Well, for starters, let's go back a few centuries, long, long ago in feudal Japan.
Under the Tokugawa shogunate in Edo, being in modern-day Tokyo, this was a strict time where mainly the military was in feudal control to recover from the continuous civil wars from the Sengoku period. Japan during this era was in great isolation from the rest of the world, making Japan fall behind heavily in varying factors, severely limiting foreign interactions. The four-tiered social hierarchy during the time consisted of the samurai, farmers, peasants, artisans, and finally, the merchants.
Wait, merchants should be at the top of the social hierarchy, like during the times of the Islamic world, right?
Well, not necessarily. Merchants in the four-tiered social hierarchy of Tokugawa Japan were primarily seen as people who simply moved goods around, with them being seen as parasites towards the higher artisan and farmer classes. Beginning the year 1853, following prolonged, dreadful years of shogun rule, United States Navy Commodore Matthew Perry ventured out to disrespectfully force the end of the Sengoku period of Japan.
Here's an accurate recreation of the Japanese perspective. Open letter to Matthew. No, Matthew Perry. Dear Commodore Matthew Perry, why did you force the end of the Sengoku period of isolation and peace? I write to you in question of your highly physically demanding, rash and aloof methods through your gunboat diplomacies and black ships. I urge you to question your choice of pursuing the Treaty of Kanagawa. Perry's enforcement of the signing of the Treaty of Kanagawa heavily sparked the beginning of the collapse of the Tokugawa government. These withering factors eventually led to a bigger, greater reform. Coming forth the opening of Japan, roughly a decade after its grand opening, Japan saw huge changes with the Meiji Restoration. Let's go to the thought bubble.
In this time, changes consisted of the abolition of feudalism, which led to the demise of the four-tiered system, causing samurai to lose power, civilians working in industrial factories, all people getting quality education, the government issuing new economy, switching from silver, gold, and bronze to the new and well-known Japanese yen currency, and finally, foreign interactions causing wars, primarily being both the victorious First Sino-Japanese War and Russo-Japanese War, effectively displaying advanced modernization as well as naval superiority.
With the now attained naval superiority and endorsements from the Allies, the Meiji Restoration set the stage for Japan's presence in the First and Second World Wars. And in the course of World War I, Japan essentially expanded its global presence, capturing German-owned territories in the Pacific and parts of China, like Qingdao.
This great expansion of influence led to Japan's permanent seat in the League of Nations, heavily displaying their growth since the Sengoku period. Despite the success in joining the League of Nations, Japan formally left in 1933, just 13 years after being in the organization, after a dispute between the League and Japan's future plans of their imperial expansion in East Asia. As a result, Japan kept expanding, capturing regions of China, Mongolia, Korea, North Vietnam, and more islands in the Pacific, ultimately establishing its presence in the Second World War and worldwide.
Soon after, with Adolf Hitler's shared beliefs of anti-communism, Japan joined the Axis powers through the Anti-Comintern Pact in 1936. Later, blinded with the desire for more power, Japan became infuriated with the threat of the US halting their operations. And as a result, Japan retaliated through the devastating attack on Pearl Harbor, with the intent to slow down their military. The attack resulted in the immediate response of the US, who used that attack to justify their entrance into the war.
5 months later, the US developed the catastrophic atomic nukes and proceeded to deploy it in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, two critical port cities of Japan.
With the devastation of Hiroshima alone, 140,000 citizens perished, and 80,000 in Nagasaki. In today's economy, Japan suffered tens of billions of dollars in damages and lost over 65% of the two cities in the destruction. Despite being over decades ago, the damages will never be repaired completely. Come a few weeks later, on August 15, 1945, Emperor Hirohito mandated the Gyokuon Hoso message of intent on national radio, stating that they are willing to cooperate with the US in surrendering their military forces. Shortly after this, on September 2, the Japanese issued the Instrument of Surrender to emphasize the temporary ceasefire and submission to US authorities. 5 years later, in 1951, the Japanese cooperated with the Americans and cemented the Treaty of San Francisco in Tokyo Bay, aboard the U.S. battleship USS Missouri. This, a permanent ceasefire, also legally concluded the war between the Japanese and the Allies. Unfortunately, this meant that Japan was no longer allowed to own a government-ran military.
Following exhausting wars and defeat, Japan overcame profound reparations with the help of the new allied United States, most primarily found through the Treaty of Mutual Cooperation and Security in 1960. The treaty mainly aided Japan in offering mutual defense, having the US defend in the case Japan were attacked, also securing international peace and security in the Far East. This later led to the great events of globalization, where most of the world entered a state of peace where regions processed goods, cultural identities, and most importantly, ideas and influences.
With the rise of modern Japan, fusion foods like curry rice, California rolls, omurice, taco rice, spam musubi, matcha lattes, and etc. rooted in Japanese origins to accustom foreign palates. Similarly, tourist attractions like Kyoto's historic temples, Mount Fuji, Shinto gates, convenience stores, and maid cafes along with maid cafes, culture and media such as Sudoku, anime, hit video games, emojis, karaoke all originated from Japanese modernization. And finally, the uttermost important fact of all, in November of 2009, in the humble coastal city of Yokosuka, Kanagawa, Ace was born. Thank you for watching.